Stop. Don't argue with me.
I'm not resisting. I'm asking a lawful question.
Hands on the hood.
I don't consent to any searches.
You don't decide that.
By the time this footage was reviewed, one officer had been fired, federal charges were pending, and the city was preparing for a multi-million-dollar civil rights settlement. Before we go any further, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. It's a clear afternoon during a routine weekday commute when a patrol car activates its lights behind a modest sedan. The driver complies, unaware that the encounter is already veering toward irreversible consequences. The officer approaches with confidence, authority, and a decision already made. What isn't visible yet is the power imbalance he's misreading, an illegal exposure he's creating with every command. Within minutes, verification will be offered and dismissed. Within the hour, supervisors and federal agencies will be involved. The outcome is certain. The details will unfold. This is a reconstructed reenactment based on a real, publicly reported case. The afternoon begins without urgency. Traffic moves steadily through a downtown corridor lined with government offices and mid-rise buildings. A single sedan signals, slows, and pulls to the curb as ordered. Inside the vehicle is a middle-aged professional dressed in conservative work attire, returning to the courthouse after a brief lunch break. There is nothing unusual about the driving pattern, nothing erratic, nothing that would normally justify heightened attention. Yet the patrol car remains positioned close behind, engine idling, camera recording. The officer approaches with his hand already resting near his weapon. His posture is rigid, his tone clipped. He requests identification without stating a reason for the stop. The driver complies immediately, handing over a valid license and registration. She asks, calmly, what violation prompted the stop. The question goes unanswered. The officer turns and walks back to his vehicle, leaving her waiting in silence. Minutes pass. 10 become 15. The driver remains still, hands visible, eyes forward. Inside the patrol car, the officer runs database checks repeatedly, searching for justification. Warrants, prior arrests, suspensions, anything that could convert a routine stop into leverage. Nothing appears. The record is clean. No flags, no history, no excuse. When the officer returns, the interaction shifts. His voice is louder now, more forceful. He orders the driver out of the vehicle. Again, she asks why. Again, no explanation is given. She complies, stepping onto the sidewalk as instructed. The body camera captures the imbalance immediately. A uniformed officer issuing commands without cause, and a citizen attempting to understand what is happening without escalating the situation. The officer directs her to place her hands on the hood. She does so. She states clearly that she does not consent to any searches. The statement is ignored. The officer moves to her personal belongings and begins searching without a warrant, without probable cause, without legal justification. She objects again, calmly, referencing her rights. The response is dismissive. The search continues. This footage would later be reviewed frame by frame. During the search, the officer discovers official identification indicating a position of protected authority within the federal judiciary. The moment presents an immediate off-ramp. Verification could be requested. A supervisor could be called. The stop could end quietly. Instead, the officer rejects the information outright, declaring it false. He accuses the driver of impersonation and escalates his commands. The driver identifies herself verbally and suggests contacting the courthouse to confirm her role. The suggestion is refused. The officer's language hardens. He asserts dominance, stating that titles do not matter and compliance is not optional. The driver remains composed, repeating that she has broken no law and asking to speak with his supervisor. The request is denied. Bystanders slow as they pass, some pausing at a distance. Cameras, fixed and mobile, continue recording. The officer applies handcuffs. The driver does not resist. She does not raise her voice. She does not attempt to flee. The justification given is vague and inconsistent, referencing alleged non-compliance that is not supported by the audio or video. The detention proceeds anyway. At this point, the stop is no longer administrative. It has crossed into an unjustified seizure. Policy violations are accumulating. Constitutional exposure is forming. The officer escorts the detained driver toward the patrol car, still refusing verification, still declining supervisory intervention. As the door closes and the vehicle pulls away from the curb, the decision has already been made. Not by policy, not by law, by ego. The encounter moves forward toward consequences that will not be negotiable. The patrol vehicle moves through city streets toward the county detention facility. Inside the back seat, the detainee remains silent, hands cuffed behind her, posture upright. The officer speaks intermittently into his radio, framing the stop as a response to erratic driving and noncompliance. Each transmission adds a new assertion, none supported by what the cameras have captured. Each statement becomes part of a record that will later be scrutinized. Upon arrival, the officer escorts her into the intake area. He informs jail personnel that the detainee is being charged with obstruction, disorderly conduct, and impersonation of a federal official. The claims are stated confidently, as though repetition alone could make them true. The intake officers exchange brief glances. They have seen this pattern before. Charges that escalate rapidly without corresponding evidence. The detainee again identifies herself and requests that her identity be verified through official channels. She explains that she is expected back at the courthouse for scheduled proceedings. The officer interrupts, insisting that the story is fabricated. He warns her that continuing to lie will result in additional charges. The warning is recorded. At this point, policy violations are already documented. Each refusal is now a recorded decision. As booking begins, a senior intake officer quietly initiates a verification call, following standard protocol when a detainee claims protected authority. Within minutes, confirmation begins to return. The name matches. The position is real. The courthouse confirms not only her identity, but her active status and scheduled obligations. The information is relayed up the chain. A supervisor approaches the arresting officer and suggests an immediate course correction. The recommendation is simple. Pause processing, contact command staff, release the detainee, and resolve the incident before it escalates further. The officer refuses. He insists that the arrest was lawful and demands full booking proceed. This is the second off-ramp ignored. Supervisory personnel recognize the exposure instantly. A detention facility has now confirmed that a person with protected federal authority has been arrested without verified cause. The situation shifts from internal inconvenience to institutional crisis. Command staff are notified. Internal affairs is alerted. External agencies are placed on standby. The detainee is uncuffed and escorted to a private area while discussions occur beyond her presence. Apologies are offered by jail supervisors, though not by the arresting officer. Requests are made for copies of all reports, recordings, and dispatch logs. The tone in the room changes. Control has moved away from the officer. By the time command staff arrive, the narrative constructed during the stop has collapsed. Audio contradicts written claims. Video disproves alleged resistance. The database logs show repeated checks without justification. Witnesses are identified. The officer is instructed to cease all involvement and surrender his equipment. From this moment on, there was no version of events where this ended quietly. The detainee is released without charges. The officer remains behind, separated from his unit, awaiting further instruction. Outside the facility, unmarked vehicles arrive. What began as a routine stop has now triggered parallel investigations that will extend far beyond this afternoon. The formal inquiries begin within hours. Internal Affairs opens a case file, requesting all bodycam footage, dashcam video, dispatch logs, and written reports associated with the stop. Each document is cross-referenced against the recordings. Discrepancies appear immediately. Statements describing aggressive behavior are contradicted by calm audio. Claims of erratic driving are negated by uninterrupted footage showing lawful operation. The paper trail no longer supports the officer's account. Supervisors are interviewed. Some acknowledge prior complaints involving similar conduct. Others admit they dismissed those complaints as unsubstantiated. The pattern becomes clearer with each file reviewed. The same language, the same justifications, the same escalation after compliance. The investigation expands beyond a single incident. Verification of identity is now formally documented. The detained individual's protected authority is confirmed in writing, along with her scheduled court responsibilities that afternoon. The arrest is classified as unlawful. The search is classified as unconstitutional. The detention is classified as false imprisonment. The legal exposure is no longer theoretical. The officer is placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. His service weapon is secured. His access credentials are revoked. He is instructed not to contact witnesses or involve personnel. The department issues a preliminary statement acknowledging an incident under review. Media inquiries begin almost immediately. Federal authorities request copies of the evidence. A civil rights review is initiated under federal statute. The scope widens again. Investigators begin examining the officer's prior stops, focusing on demographic data, arrest outcomes, and complaint histories. Statistical anomalies emerge. Certain groups are disproportionately represented. Reports are compared against footage. Patterns repeat. Supervisors and command staff are now implicated, not for direct action, but for documented inaction. Emails are retrieved. Performance evaluations are reviewed. Language praising initiative and assertiveness appears alongside ignored warnings. The system that allowed the stop to escalate is now part of the inquiry. The officer provides a statement through counsel. The explanation shifts. First, it was safety, then procedure, then misunderstanding. Each version conflicts with recorded evidence. Each revision compounds the credibility gap. Investigators note the inconsistencies. As the findings are compiled, the direction becomes unavoidable. Termination proceedings are initiated. Prosecutors review the file for potential charges. Civil counsel prepares filings. The department prepares for public disclosure. The officer's control over the narrative is gone. What remains is documentation, video, audio, reports, timestamps, all converging on the same conclusion. From this moment on, there was no version of events where this ended quietly. The outcomes arrive in sequence, documented and irreversible. The officer is terminated following an internal affairs finding of documented misconduct, constitutional violations, and falsified reporting. His certification is revoked. He is barred from future law enforcement employment. The department issues a public acknowledgement that the arrest lacked legal basis. Federal prosecutors filed charges for deprivation of rights under color of law and false imprisonment. The indictment cites bodycam footage, audio recordings, dispatch logs, and witness statements. The search, detention, and arrest are each listed as separate violations. A conviction follows. A prison sentence is imposed. The civil case proceeds independently. The city enters settlement negotiations after preliminary rulings reject qualified immunity defenses. The agreement includes a multi-million-dollar payout, mandatory policy revisions, and external oversight. Supervisory failures are named explicitly. Training protocols are rewritten. Early warning systems are implemented. Internal reporting procedures are restructured. Additional cases tied to the same officer are reopened. Prior arrests are reviewed. Several convictions are vacated. The department faces secondary litigation from affected individuals. Federal monitors are assigned to oversee compliance for a defined term. Budget allocations are redirected toward compliance and reform. Command staff face discipline. One supervisor resigns. Another is demoted. Performance evaluation criteria are amended to remove arrest count incentives. Data transparency requirements are adopted. Public reporting becomes mandatory. The footage is released in full. The narrative does not change. The footage was public. The decision was permanent.